Well, this might not be the prettiest way I've ever built, but it sure is the fastest. Hello everybody, I'm Martin and welcome to another episode of Glacial Awakening. And as you can see, I have built out a little bit more area into my Magneticraft workroom. I haven't moved any of the machines around yet, but we have given it much more space to work with because I've added this lower area down here. Probably should have used the stairs instead of breaking my legs. I also added this nook back here where I'm going to shove the power and hide it back here for now, just so it's not out on the wall where I have a big huge grid of those if I even end up building a big grid of those. I don't even know what I'm going to do yet. But we at least have some more space to work with, so I think we can continue on even though it's ugly. I promise I'm going to go chisel this and decorate it at some point. It took me so long to dig this hole. We got to move on with the episode, right? We've got to go progress at some point. So maybe we can finish up most of chapter 3 today. I'm not entirely certain what all is involved, but we've got to make some big things. Starting with the Immersive Engineering Coke Oven, which this could be problematic because I don't know what's actually involved. But we need to start by making the engineer's manual, which thankfully is just a book and a lever. And in the bookmaking front, since we do need to make cow leather, I did make some changes in between the episodes. And I set up a temporary very ugly pyre here so that we can do the ritual of animal harvest from roots, which thankfully is just pretty easy to do. It's wool and then some basic materials from our farm. And what this lets us do is pop those in, start a fire, and it will just start automatically gathering from our animals here. You'll see them light up periodically. You might have to wait a little bit, and I'm not that patient. But the other thing I did was I moved my chest that was over here to right here and put a hopper on both sides. So you can see one here, and you can't see the other because it's hidden by the cows. But it's depositing them in here, and this is getting us cowhide at a pretty decent rate as long as I keep doing this. So we might actually be able to get to enchanting pretty soon. Yep, there you can see one lit up right over there. So with the book well underhand, we also need to make the engineer's hammer, and this is also just pretty simple. So with the easy steps done, it is time to go do the actual scut work. Let's see how bad this actually is. Because this requires 27 coke bricks, which that's pretty much normal, but we'll see how bad this is. And oh, yeah, this is definitely not the standard recipe because this requires heavy plates from Magneticraft, which looks like it takes 4 ingots each. So we need 9 recipes of these, and that means 36 of each of these ingots. So hopefully I have enough in storage. If not, I could probably make enough pretty quickly. And then a bunch of clay, even more clay, and then a bunch of sand. So hopefully I have most of this already on hand. If not, well, I guess give me a little bit to put it together. All right, that took a fair bit of scut work because I did have to go make a bunch of the ingots and process all that stuff and get all the sand out of the grinder from cobblestone, but we've got that done. And I think I'm actually going to hide it back here in my power room because this is exactly the right height. It's 3 blocks tall, and there's not going to be a whole lot going on in here otherwise. So I guess let's put it back in the corner back here. And you just make a 3x3x3 cube. You do not make a hollow center like you do in some packs. And then you smack it with the hammer and it's done. Now obviously the main use for this is to turn coal into coke, and to get coal we have to pass charcoal in through our natural altar first. Alright, and this step is at least easy, although time consuming, so we have to wait for it to finish, and I probably should go replace that ancient sapling back there that has no leaves on it so that we don't run out of ore while we're doing this. Alright, and it better get some of this cooking because this process does take quite a while. This also fills up a tank full of creosote that we're going to have to eventually figure out how to empty out and deal with. But that's a problem for later. It won't happen immediately at least, but I currently don't have any clean way of dumping that out. Unless these fluid pipes actually work. I've never used these before. I might be able to use this to dump it into a Arcane Archives tank. I probably should try that. Okay, yeah, so I did some digging before I actually built it, although I made the iron plates for it. You would need a pump to actually pull the liquid out using Immersive Engineering stuff, which require power, which require more effort than I'm willing to go into right now. So we're just going to use a bucket for the time being. Or I'll make an M4 to do it here, but it's a problem for later because we've got much better piping solutions coming up in the not too far off future anyways. So moving right along, let's get a storage drawer upgrade, which is not that amazing since we probably should be making diamond ones and I just haven't gotten around to it. But next up, and the direct follow-up to this, is the blast furnace and or the alloy kiln. And I think we're going to do the alloy kiln first. It mentions a crystal pickaxe and I'm not entirely certain why, but this just requires 8 kiln bricks, which the recipe for this isn't too bad. It's just 4 normal bricks One refractory block, which is a pain to make, because this is a whole process where we have to do the whole flint and clay and ash stuff, which we'll hopefully have most of them enough of this, although we'll probably have to make some more flint clay the old-fashioned way. And then these infused rocks from Nature's Ore, which we've made before, which are just sky stone, which we've got plenty of. So let me go slap that together real fast too. Well, I've got to be honest, I am not enjoying this trip back to Pyrotech. It is just a whole lot of waiting and waiting and waiting. I could add a bunch more, I could have scaled this out more, but I just don't see the point. Alright, so that was just stupefyingly tedious, but let's just go throw this down here for now until I find a better spot for it long term. And now that we have that, it wants us to make Electrum. And since we have this, Electrum's actually pretty easy. It's just gold and silver, which we have. So I guess let's fire this up and get some of this cooking. And there we go, enough Electrum to finish this out, which gets us absolutely nothing. So the question is, what is the reward for all of our scut work so far? Surprise, it's more scut work. We need to make a whole bunch of blast bricks for the blast furnace. And thankfully this doesn't appear to be the massive nightmare the other ones were, although I might need to make some more blaze powder, but that's not too bad because we can convert it from gunpowder. The nether bricks, I hopefully have enough netherrack to do because we need a bunch of these. We need to make 9 of them, which means we need 36 of these again. This should at least be more doable than the prior step was in a reasonable amount of time because this doesn't really involve pyrotech. So I decided to go dig up a hill and toss a bunch of dirt into the nature's altar to get a bunch of worms to get some more enchanting books over time. And of all of the things to show up in here, this book, why do all of these have to be stacked on this book right here? Like, I love the fact that Fortune 3 is there, but I prefer if it was not on the same book that had Sharpness 3. Well, back to the regularly scheduled scut work. Alright, so this is pretty much the same thing as the coke oven. It's just a 3x3x3 cube smacked with the hammer at the very end, same as the oven. Now, the question I have to ask is if coke is even needed in this recipe right now, because that's the kind of the gotcha that happens in some of these packs is that coke actually isn't a requirement to make steel in some of them. So let's give this a test, shall we? Chuck in some iron and let's chuck in some charcoal. Nope, it's not going in. Nor is the coal, so I guess we do have to use coke in this one at least. And as you can see, this does take a while. It's going to take a bit to process. And since we need 8 of them to do this, which gets us some more free coke, I guess, we're going to be waiting for a couple minutes. While we're waiting for the steel, let's look a bit ahead and do the simple machine chassis, because this requires we go do something, because we need grains of infinity that we get down at bedrock. And thankfully, we've already punched a hole all the way down to bedrock because we had to do it for astral sorcery. So that part should be relatively straightforward. The problem, of course, down here being that this is all ice and it floods as soon as it gets lit up. So we need to create a safe space where I can set a fire and not have all of this melt and immediately put it all out. Anyhow, the whole trick to the Grains of Infinity is you just light a fire on bedrock and it creates it periodically. We're going to have to keep doing this. We'll be able to automate it in the future probably. The smart thing, however, would have been to bring a tavern with me so that I could easily teleport down here instead of having to keep doing this. I could have planned this smarter. Alright, so while I was down there, I gathered 10 Grains of Infinity just so I have some extras, and I got 18 steel made in the meantime, which means we can move on to the next step and the last one for today, which is collect some coal coke, and then go make the simple machine chassis for Ender.io. And I've got to be honest, while this looks bad, and it kind of isn't amazing because it does require steel and these steel plates, which is just another steel ingot, and the capacitor requires a star metal. Compared to Enigmatica, this is a cakewalk. So let's get this and let's move on to the actual machine age. The hydraulic press really is just a satisfying machine to watch though. And that lets us make the capacitor, which lets us make the simple machine chassis from Ender.io. But more importantly, that finishes chapter 3. And we get the checkbox and it's all done. And this is no reward, it just unlocks the chapter. But this moves us into chapter 4. Which is the interesting one, and immediately gives us a capacitor bank, which is a little worrying, and a meteorite compass that we don't need because we already found tons of meteors. But it opens up a whole bunch of different things. It opens up nuclear craft, AE2, Ender.io, industrial foregoing. So all of the major machine mods are all coming together very quickly, and we're going to need a real power source. But that's not a problem for today to solve. because my problem for today was actually to clean up this room, which I didn't actually do, but we did make some space, and I'll probably do it in between episodes and figure out actual homes for this, and maybe hook up some conveyor belts and, maybe do some show and tell next time. But if you found this episode interesting and entertaining, please consider leaving a like or subscribing if you're new. As always, I'm Ard. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.